some that are added afterwards, they should probably be on the permit drawings, so they can be identified later when we go to, you know, decommission everything, to know what drain tiles existed when we started and what were added, and then what would be left behind to make sure they're there. Since they aren't on the drawing, I thought that would be something that would be good to add. Let's see, page 6 was the other one I had. Next one. And like I said, I'm just kind of going through them quickly, and I don't care if, you know, one way or the other, I'm just mentioning them. Okay, on the P section of page 6, it says if it's preferable to install equipment above the ground, Locke talks about there, but it doesn't mention anything about minimum heights or maximum height of that. It looks like, I assume it's going to be the wiring.
That's where that 100 feet comes in earlier.
Yes, but I don't know if there's a minimum. So, you know, you could be 5 feet from the ground with wires stretched out.
No, I'm sure there's, I mean, this is electrical wires, so I'm sure there's a part of the electrical code is going to determine how high that
Okay.
is.
I would think the National Electrical Code would
It's
dictate some of
16
that.
feet.
Okay. And then on section S, page 6, where we require indemnification and insurance, I thought it might be proper to have listed, it's supposed to be provided by the owner or developer, something on there, because right now it just says you're supposed to have insurance, but it doesn't say who's responsible for that. And then the next one on page 8, I think it's just the way it's worded, it's kind of confusing. Page 8. Page 8, you're talking about decommissioning. That's section Z. It's called continuing security, and it says they shall post decommissioning security prior to the start of construction. So I don't know, that's a little confusing. It's, you start construction when you begin building it, not, you know, I don't know how you mean that there. I assume that you're talking about decommissioning there, but I think it's probably, the word construction is probably not the right word.
No, I think it is. So typically, prior to construction, there's a lot of bonds that are required.
Yeah.
You know, that they are required to provide, like performance bonds and all sorts of things. And that would be at the start of construction is when you would also require your decommissioning security. So yeah,
yes.
that's in line with all of the other bonds and all the other securities that
Okay.
we would.
All right,
that we would require.
that's an easy.
The current
Yeah.
project had to post that before.
Okay.
They have to post it before they construct it, so at some point in the future, if they don't remove it, we can use that money.
Yeah, I don't recall what form it was in, but it was run through the township board.
Okay, and then, do you want to go into the wind portion, or do
Sure.
you want to do that separately? Okay, then on the wind portion starts at 6.26, looking at that very first page, going down to property setbacks, which is section D, beginning at 3 and also including at 4, where we list the distance between that for the wind energy to be 1 1/2 times the height. And I would recommend we increase that to 2 times the height. And I understand that the windmills have brakes and safety components on it, but I've also seen the videos of them throwing blades. And I would think that based on the height of 1 1/2 times, a blade being thrown could go further than that. So I would recommend 2 times the distance versus 1 1/2 times. That's sections 3 and 4. And I guess the other ones are really, really minor, so it's not worth mentioning. So that's just a quick thought. If there's anything on there that anybody else thinks, if they agree that want to change, or if they don't, I have no big issue with the other.
So on your comment on the landscaping, I'd agree that I want it outside. And I saw some language here, it said something about screening the landscape. Installed to obscure the large solar energy system and energy storage facility. The fence would technically be, this is item J3 on page 4. The fence would be part of the facility, correct? So therefore, the landscaping would have to be outside the fence in order to obscure it, is that?
Right, but I think, I mean, if there's concern, it's adding a couple words, right? Landscape
Okay.
screening shall be installed to obscure the large energy system from adjacent uses and passersby. The evergreen So I can say that where it can be composed of, and then somewhere in here I can say,
So, you know,
located on the
Ex-
outside of the
exterior
fence.
side.
Yeah, and it's much safer to
Yeah.
maintain it also that way.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that.
Okay.
On the drain tiles, because this is something we talked about on the project that's currently underway, and they had to do a survey. But was that part of their submission, or is that something that they did as?
That was part of the condition because that wasn't part of the that was a
A
update to.
condition, right, right.
That was an
okay.
update to this, the last update to this ordinance had the drain tiles in
But
it.
it's not in this ordinance we're doing right now. That's why I thought it should be added.
Well, it is, I
It
mean, the
is,
drain
that's-
tile
yeah,
is in
yeah,
there.
we've since added it because,
But it's not, is it gonna be identified, so we know what's
yeah,
there?
so.
I just think some simple warning
Yeah.
would be proper.
Yeah, I don't have any
Well, we
issue.
would add it under B, on page 1 or 2, probably the end of this list, talking about, existing and proposed, drain tile layout.
Yes,
Okay,
that would be good.
all right, yeah, that sounds good.
Do any of these things we're discussing now, do they have any impact on the current project, like that is underway?
No.
No,
Okay.
that's been permitted.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to ask.
Started. And everything we're talking about, they did. It's, in my mind, I'd see,
Yeah.
some of this is cleaning up the language and whatnot.
Well, I wondered in the original proposal if there was any, the consent judgment, if there was any wording around the space between the shrubs, because I've gotten comments from residents, like, the trees currently are pretty far apart. I don't know if that was included in the consent judgment.
I'd have to look at the consent judgment, but typically, they have to.
They will grow, I know that.
They have to,
Yeah.
be planted on center so that they don't crowd each other and die.
Right.
So in the beginning, it looks like they're kind of far apart, but.
That was my
they'll-
initial.
Yeah, they don't take very long, I mean, they'll take a
Yeah,
year
the
or a
arborvitaes.
little bit more to fill in.
Mhm.
It'll be much-
Yeah, and I don't recall if it was delineated in the consent judgment, but it was in their plans, which are referred to in the consent judgment, so it shows up there, so.
Yeah.
You know, as part of their construction, this is where the township, you know, we don't have building inspectors and stuff on staff, but the township's gonna have to figure out how to go out and have somebody take a look and make sure
Make
that,
sure they're
you know.
doing
Well,
what
I
they
brought
Yeah.
that question up to
Yeah.
the board meeting in December
Okay.
and was told that it was up to the county. There would be someone from the county supposedly.
Oh,
But I-
okay,
I-
and maybe they do, because
Well,
they
the
had to
building
pull.
inspectors are.
Yeah, the bill, yeah, so maybe that would be the case.
Actually, an engineer's supposed to go out,
Okay,
according to the agreement.
okay, there we go.
Our
The
engineer.
township's engineer.
Township engineer.
Yeah, that would be a good
Can I give you a comment on that?
person to do it.
On the judgment for Mitchell's about behind my house, it says the trees are gonna be set 10 foot on centers, I'm pretty sure. So that engineer wrote down where the trees are gonna be exactly and how far they're gonna be spaced.
When I went by that solar field, those trees look like 6 foot apart at that.
Yeah.
They're
probably
pretty close.
They're probably 6 feet, that's
Yeah.
6 to 5
Yeah.
feet.
Isn't there gonna be a second road? Wasn't there supposed to be a staggered, multiple rows of?
They might have only got one in
Right,
before the
Yeah.
season, yeah, or, you know, when you're ordering that many trees, sometimes you can get them.
right.
Yeah,
There's a big old
was it a
lot of
row of
trees.
trees and a row of shrubs or
It's
something?
staggered rows.
That was staggered, I think,
Yeah.
if I recall. On the indemnity one, that might not be a bad thing to say that, you know, to be provided by.
Yeah,
How to
I,
refer to petitioner or the developer. or
yeah, I
whatever.
just noted, you know, modifying the first sentence to say developer/owner is responsible to provide public liability, property damage insurance that must be continuously maintained.
Okay. And on D3, you know, sometimes more is better. I guess the one thing I would ask Ms. Krebs is to look at the geometry based on what we're calling for as a minimum lot size and whatnot. And
For
make
the-
sure by doing
for the
that, we
wind?
aren't creating something
wind.
that's not developable.
Well, so the height of, that you're allowing, the maximum height
Yeah.
of the wind would be 80 feet.
Okay.
So you would be requesting 160 feet as
And
opposed
it
to
has to be a 10
120
acre,
feet.
yeah, it has to be
It has to be a
10
10
acre
acre
parcel,
parcel.
so there should be room.
So you think that you wanna go with the 2 times? I don't, it doesn't matter to me either way.
It's not critical, it's just, when you saw that video on YouTube of it throwing a blade,
Yeah. Anything else, Commissioner Wall?
no, I'm just pleased that, you know, we had some things to discuss on it.
Good. Are there any other comments or questions from any other commission members?
I do,
Mr. Oliver?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we added a lot of the, we added all of our battery storage language to the existing solar, and I shared this, I don't remember if you took a copy, but I brought in the Deerfield Township as an example, and there were some things on there that I didn't know if it would be prudent for us to think about, or, and then make any changes. They had really some clear language about where the battery storage systems can go. They had a quadrant. This kind of ties into a larger conversation that I kind of wanted to have tonight about, I brought this up before, about the CREO and the Green Energy District. Like, I feel like we kind of created that naturally and organically with the solar farm. So, and I know it's close to the substation, so a lot of townships in the state are, because again, if we don't have, and again, I preface this, we all know what's going on with the lawsuit and PA 233, right? But a lot of townships, because there's language right now, that if, let's say, Milan wanted to bring in a battery storage facility or a wind farm, and they have a CREO, and we didn't, then it would automatically get kicked to the state, right? Am I understanding that?
I don't know that anything's happening with PH, I mean, I don't think
Well,
that it's even become effective at this point.
No, I understand.
So I don't know if that's true, if it came in today, I don't know that
Well,
that's true.
That's simple language from what was,
Right, but it hasn't taken effect, is what I'm saying.
So that did not go into effect in
No, there's a
November, when it was
lawsuit and then
supposed
there's,
so that, because the lawsuit hasn't gone into effect?
no, nothing, it stays, like, there's no, it doesn't go into effect,
Okay,
because there's, pending litigation.
well,
So I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but at this point, at
So
this
it's not
point,
worth-
no one is doing anything with CREO that in any of my communities, and even in our firm, we're not doing anything with CREO.
Okay.
We just don't know what's gonna,
well, something to just, I would like everyone to consider that if some things do move and there's changes, I think it's prudent to, because what a lot of them have done before, I guess, PA 233 went into effect, is they had a CREO that lined up with the state's requirements, but then they created a green energy district. And within that district, then our ordinances and our things of additional setbacks and height requirements and all of those things would pertain. So and there's calculations that, for our township to be carbon neutral, to meet the state's carbon neutral goals, we can factor in that. We've more than met really that obligation with the size of the solar farm that we have in our township. So just maybe put a pin in that and based on what happens. But the language, so there's stuff in here about, and I think I heard someone talk about the national electrical standards. There is, maybe we might want to have something in there about the storage systems to, follow all the standards and I don't know what national, the FPA 855 standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems. If we want to make sure that potentially anything coming in would follow those standards.
Is that NFPA?
Yes.
Okay, this National Fire Protection
Okay.
Association. So it's a code, just a different one, like from the International Building Code.
Okay.
not to interrupt you, but sometimes, when you put in electrical codes, building codes, fire codes into the ordinance, it sometimes becomes problematic in the future because those change.
Right.
And we can't, I'm not an expert in any of those, and so I don't know when something like that changes, so we just wanna be careful of the references that we make, so that it all of a sudden doesn't become obsolete, and then we have an applicant in front of us that says, well, we don't have to do that, because we follow
So then
XYZ.
maybe is the
So
language
this year,
better to include something
electrical,
where we
plumbing,
follow
heating's all
all
changing.
current?
Well, I mean, they have to anyway. They have to follow the current
Oh.
electrical code, the building code, the fire code.
Yeah, and
They have
those
to.
generally, at least, I don't know about NFPA, but the building codes generally run on a 3-year cycle. And
They're changing,
Yeah.
most of them this year,
Yeah.
except the building code. They're delaying that.
I don't know if we have something at the township level that, if there's an application fee, like I didn't know if Ranger Power or any other, like, they've got in their battery storage, application fee in an amount set by the resolution of the township board. Parcel numbers that will be used in term, what, I'm talking application, list parcel numbers, documentation establishing ownership of each parcel and any lease agreement, easements or purchase agreements for the subject parcels, an operations agreement. It's more detailed and specifically to battery storage than what we have in our current amended solar plan, like current photographs of the subject property. Like those, like it's a very lengthy list of application requirements that might be